In 2018, 346 innocent people died because a billion-dollar American company decided that saving money was more important than human life. Instead of spending the required billions of dollars to properly design a new airplane to compete with Airbus, Boeing bolted massive engines onto a 50-year-old airframe, installed a hidden software system tied to a single sensor, and deliberately kept it out of flight manuals so airlines wouldn't demand expensive pilot training. Now, when these planes crashed, Boeing didn't just cause an unprecedented tragedy, they destroyed their own $200 billion financial foundation while damaging their own reputation. And yet, if you look at Boeing's corporate website, they boast millions of dollars of charitable donations, sustainability pledges, and community grants. How can a company claim to care so much about society while making decisions that actively destroy it? The answer can be understood using a business framework created in 1991 called Archie Carroll's Pyramid of Corporate Social Responsibility. Most executives treat the pyramid like a la carte menu. They pick the flashy top layer, which is philanthropy, to buy your trust while quietly cutting corners at the bottom, the foundations. Today, we are exposing how billion-dollar brands weaponize every single level of this pyramid to trick you into believing they care, and why one wrong step can burn a brand to the ground. We will also look at good examples of when companies get this pyramid right. At the absolute foundation of Carroll's pyramid sits economic responsibility. Before a brand can donate a single dollar to charity, build a solar farm, or fund a grant, it has to do one thing above all else: stay solvent and make money. If a company goes broke, the entire pyramid collapses. Bankrupt companies lay off thousands of workers, default on debts, and devastate local communities. So, what is the scam at this level? The scam is mistaking short-term greed for economic responsibility. Keep in mind that companies doing this are not just scamming the consumers and general public, they're scamming themselves and their own stakeholders, just like Boeing did. Look back at the Boeing crisis that we just discussed. Boeing thought that they were practicing economic efficiency by cutting research and development and rushing out the 737 MAX. They skipped safety redundancies. The result? Over $20 billion in direct fines, groundings, and cancelled orders. Airbus permanently took the lead in global aviation market share. Boeing's debt exploded, the credit rating plummeted to near junk status, and its 100-year reputation was permanently shattered. Its stock price collapsed. Now let's take a look at another example: the collapse of crypto exchange FTX. Through total financial lawlessness, zero internal control, and gambling with customer funds, Sam Bankman-Fried wiped out $8 billion of client wealth almost overnight, ended up in jail himself. So what should companies do at this tier or at this level of this pyramid? Develop true long-term value. Now, when done right, economic responsibility isn't about milking profits today. It's about building long-term financial health. Look at Toyota. Their legendary Kaizen, or continuous improvement manufacturing system, allowed them to build durable cars, protect their global workforce, and fund hybrid research and development like the Prius, decades before electric vehicles even went mainstream. Or look at Nvidia. By obsessively investing in chip technology for decades, they generated massive profits, paid top-tier salaries to its employees, and built the literal engine powering the modern AI economy. These good companies prove that real economic responsibility means long-term asset stewardship, not sacrificing product safety for a quarterly stock bump or short-term financial gains. Now, once a company is making money or generating economic profit as the first tier demands, society demands that it moves to tier 2, which is legal responsibility. Now, the law represents society's baseline ground rules: labor laws, environmental limits, consumer protection, tax codes, and on and on and on the law will go. Compliance isn't an achievement in itself, it's a bare minimum price of entry to do business. So, a company should fill the moral minimum, which is basically it should follow the law of the land as well as generate economic profit in the same time. And if you do this, then you are following the moral minimum. So you might be asking, what is the scam here? What is it that the companies are doing to not fulfill the moral minimum? This happens when companies treat the law like an engineering hack, try to find loopholes to try to skirt or avoid the law and avoid the penalties. Now, when executive teams use corporate social responsibility as a scam, the law is no longer considered a moral boundary that should not be crossed. It is treated as just a system to be hacked, to be skirted, to be avoided. Look at Volkswagen's famous clean diesel campaign. To trick eco-conscious consumers, Volkswagen spent hundreds of millions of dollars branding themselves as green leaders. Behind that clean PR mask was pure criminal deception. To pass strict environmental tests in the US and Europe without sacrificing engine performance, Volkswagen installed hidden defeat devices. This software automatically detected when the car was sitting in a lab test and artificially dialed down the toxic emission numbers. But on the road, the cars pumped out up to 40 times the legal pollution limit. Volkswagen built a digital camouflage system to scam regulators and the customers alike. When the fraud blew wide open, Volkswagen faced over $30 billion in criminal fines, civil settlements, and vehicle buybacks. Top executives were criminally indicted, and the brand's green identity was permanently ruined. Also, look at fast fashion giant Shein. I don't know how many of you shop there. My wife routinely shops in that particular e-commerce giant. Shein faced massive regulatory enforcement across Europe after regulators caught them making deceptive environmental claims and breaking consumers' safety disclosure laws. Now contrast these scandals with brands like Patagonia, which spends millions of dollars auditing its global supply chain by itself to ensure strict compliance with complex labor and environmental laws across dozens of countries, proving that global scale doesn't require breaking the law. Now we enter tier 3, which is ethical responsibility. This is where the real brand wars are fought today. Here is the dirty truth. The law is slow, reactive, and full of loopholes, as we mentioned. We know that just because you follow the law does not mean you are ethical. Ethical responsibility means doing what is fair and just, even when no law is forcing your hand or asking you to do the right thing. Let us look at the scam in this particular tier. You might have heard the term of greenwashing or green rinsing. Now, when corporate social responsibility is weaponized, executives create what I call the moral mirage, giving you the illusion of social progress while extracting maximum profit behind the scenes. They're pretending to do good, but behind the scenes, they are actually doing bad. Look at how energy giants pull off green rinsing. A few years ago, big oil companies made massive public splashes, placing ambitious net zero target by 2050 to capture positive news headlines and get high ESU scores. But the second oil prices surged, companies like Shell and BP quietly pulled back, delayed or watered down the commitments behind closed door to chase immediate fossil fuel profits. Or look at social media giants like TikTok and Meta. In public, they sponsor a lot of youth mental health summits, post take a break pop-ups, and run ad campaigns claiming that their platform brings young people together. But behind the scenes, internal whistleblower documents show that these companies know that their recommendation algorithms are actively pushing teenagers down toxic rabbit holes. fueling anxiety, depression, and body dysmorphia amongst those teens, all because outrage and addiction keeps young people glued to the screen for many hours a day. They sell you wellness apps on the front end while engineering digital addiction on the back end to maximize their ad revenue. Or look at generative AI tech firms. Companies scrape millions of copyrighted artwork, books, photos, and personal creations without consent of the creator or a single cent of payment to train multi-billion-dollar commercial models. Their lawyers hide behind the legal gray area of fair use, but ethically, it represents one of the largest corporate wealth transfers away from human creators in history. So, what does a company actually look like when it chooses ethics over easy profit? Like this next company. Look at Patagonia again. In 2022, the billionaire founder of Patagonia faced a choice every major corporation dreams of. Should he take the company public for billions of dollars or sell out to a mega corporation? Instead, what he did is very inspiring. He did something unprecedented in corporate history. He gave the entire company away. He transferred 100% of Patagonia's voting stock to an environmental trust and all of its non-voting stock to a non-profit dedicated to fighting climate crisis. No government forced him to do it. There was no law demanding he surrender his multi-billion-dollar fortune, but he did. Their official corporate statement dropped the ultimate mic drop. Earth is now our only shareholder. What a wonderful thing to do. Every single dollar of profit that isn't reinvested back into running the business will go straight to protecting the planet. That is what real tier 3 ethical responsibility looks like. Giving up ultimate wealth because your moral code or ethics demand it. Another example is Ben & Jerry's. Long before governments started debating agricultural carbon emission or fair trade mandates, Ben & Jerry's paid dairy farmers living wage premiums and sourced 100% fair trade ingredients simply because it aligned with their core moral stance or what they thought was their ethical responsibility. Now, the key takeaway here is if a company's ethics are only active when it's cheap and profitable, that isn't actually corporate social responsibility. It's pure performance or theater to show the people that you care. But you don't. Now let's look at the final piece of the pyramid or the top tier. At this very peak sits philanthropic responsibility. Now, philanthropic responsibility is voluntary giving, donating profits, facilities, and time to uplift society. Society requires economic and legal performance, expects ethical behavior, but what it desires is philanthropy as well. So, what is the scam here? How are people scamming this tier of the pyramid? We all know actually this is the step where a lot of companies are actually scamming the public. This is where most of the billion-dollar brands and wealthy people pull off their ultimate trick, using corporate charity or philanthropy to buy social immunity for the damages that they cause at the bottom of the pyramid. Look at the infamous case of Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. While Purdue was aggressively pushing Oxycontin, fueling an opioid epidemic that destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives, the Sackler family was busy plastering their names on the walls of elite art institutions. They donated tens of millions of dollars to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Louvre, the Oxford University to buy social prestige and build a PR shield against public criticism. Or look at everyday cause wash. A multi-billion-dollar company launches a high-profile $2 million grant program, spends tens of millions of dollars advertising how generous they are, all the while paying their frontline workers sub-living wage, fighting basic healthcare benefits, and lobbying against local school taxes. You see this across the big box retail industry with giants like Walmart or Amazon. They'll ask you to round up your change at the register for a children's hospital so that they can claim the PR headlines for raising tens of millions of dollars. while their frontline workers earn poverty wages and have to rely on state assistance. That's cause washing at its finest. So, what does true non performative philanthropy looks like? Now, let's take a look at the company Salesforce. Instead of treating charity like an afterthought or a PR campaign launched only when bad press hits, they pioneered the 1-1-1 model, pledging 1% of the company's equity, 1% of its software products, and 1% of employee work hours to nonprofits and community development. To date, this baked in model has generated over $600 million in community grants and millions of hours of paid volunteer work worldwide from its employees. Now, that is what happens when philanthropy isn't used as a shiny PR shield to distract from the corrupt core, but it is built into the foundation of the architecture of the business itself. Let's also look at another company, Chobani. Instead of launching a glossy marketing campaign while paying minimum wage, billionaire founder of Chobani, Hamdi, did something completely unheard of in the corporate world. He gave 10% of the company's actual equity directly to his 2,000 factory and hourly employees. Now, these shares came straight out of his personal ownership stakes and were handed out based on employee tenure, turning line workers and plant operators into co-owners with payouts worth tens of thousands of dollars. On top of that, Chobani intentionally built its hiring model around refugees and immigrants, providing them with language training and support as well. Now, that is what happens when philanthropy isn't used as a PR shield to distract from a corrupt core, but is built into the foundational architecture of how a company values its people. Now, Archie Carroll's ultimate lesson here is simple. CSR is a total concept. It is not an a la carte menu. You cannot buy your way into Tier 4 philanthropy while breaking laws at Tier 2, exploiting workers at Tier 3, or chasing short-term profits at Tier 1. It is a whole deal. It's a whole package. You have to pick up the entire pyramid. A truly elite company balances all four of these tiers and the responsibilities simultaneously. In Tier 1, they build real long-term financial value and an economic base that is sustainable. In Tier 2, they will follow the law and play strictly within its rules. In Tier 3, they behave ethically and do what is right beyond what is required from the moral minimum. In Tier 4, they are philanthropic and focus on uplifting the world around them.